Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today I want to kickstart a new series on the channel, focusing around the Demons of Chaos and their possible playstyle, mainly because I've recently picked up the old tabletop army books to work on a new project, and it struck me that I've never actually covered this on the channel. As it looks very likely that we will have mono-god armies, I will divide this into 4 separate videos so we can focus on each god. Today I'd like to focus on my personal favourite Chaos God, Slaanesh, and how her forces would likely play in Total War Warhammer. Keep in mind that this is coming from a perspective of Total War, the tabletop, and of course the lore, so without further ado, let's begin. All 4 of the Chaos Gods in Warhammer Fantasy have their own unique and distinct playstyle, especially when it comes to the tabletop. It can also be assumed that in Total War Warhammer, if mono gods do become a thing, then this will also be the case. Unfortunately, Slaanesh in most Warhammer settings until recently didn't receive a lot of love. However, we do know some things in lore which will make her stand out from the other Chaos Gods. Whether or not the Slaaneshi forces are full demon or a mixture between demon and mortal, the playstyle should indeed stay the same. Slaanesh's forces are mostly centered around fast-moving but hard-hitting skirmishing units. We can expect a lot of fast cavalry here, as Steeds of Slaanesh are a very popular mount option. Usable by both mortals and demons, the Steeds of Slaanesh are extremely fast cavalry. They're supposed to be there to rival that of elven horses, so these are your units that you'll use to flank about. In the tabletop, these steeds would also be armor piercing and cause poison attacks, which of course translates rather nicely into Total War Warhammer. The steeds themselves would also be usable in a multitude of different chariot units. If you're used to playing Norska or the Tomb Kings, it's likely that you already know your way around a chariot build. However, with Slaanesh, these chariots tend to vary. In lore, they're not so much focused on ranged and skirmish hitting. In fact, it's very unlikely that we'll see these chariots have any ranged options, although I could be wrong. Though skirmishing playstyle is to be expected, especially with a Slaaneshi force, the chariots kinda worked in a different sense. Skirmishing was indeed possible, but it was mostly centered around a more bulldozer type of effect, where you could throw your chariots into the enemy lines. It doesn't matter if it's through the front, the rear, or through the flank, it would still do its damage. Of course, your fast cav and your chariots would have to be supported by some ground troops, usually in the form of melee and monstrous units. However, once again, they're not supposed to act in the similar way that you'd expect from Chaos itself. Instead of a focus of hard-hitting units, you'd instead get more skirmishing type of troops. Don't get me wrong, they'd still have to hit relatively hard, and they would be expected to do so, but their main focus once again is fast movement. Their main focus should be to move around the battlefield relatively quickly, mostly focused around acting as a tar pit. You hold your enemies in place with your foot units, and then surround them with your chariots and your fast cavalry. As I said, they're still expected to hit hard, but the way Slaanesh worked around the tabletop, which due to their possible unit composition, they'll be expected to work the same way in Total War, the army itself was centered around synergizing different units and having them work together to get the best possible outcome. This is further reinforced by their laws of magic, as they have access to their own unique lore, the Lore of Slaanesh. The lore of Slaanesh itself is focused mostly around direct damage and most importantly hexes and debuffs. Of course, it's also likely your Slaaneshi forces will also have access to the Lore of Shadow, as this was very common in the tabletop, and that lore itself will focus more around doing damage, but generally the Lore of Slaanesh itself is there to be your main focus. Throw a bunch of debuffs towards your enemies, and with that, you have them weakened for your chariot chargers or even your frontline tar pits. Again, synergy between your available options. The fact that your spellcasters will also be able to make use of these chariots as per the tabletop, and it can be assumed the same way in Total War, your spellcasters will be your frontline units, which generally isn't too common, as obviously spellcasters are generally quite squishy, but in the case of Slaanesh and her forces, we've already talked about the fact that these chariots are very fast and do a lot of damage. They should be relatively decently armored too, so you wouldn't have to fear too much about having them in the front line. Of course, keeping them around other chariots is a good option, as the last thing you want to do is have them be targeted easily without a problem. In short, whether the Slaanesh forces are focused more around lore or tabletop implementation, I imagine the Slaanesh forces to focus around fast moving units and obviously a high emphasis in magic. Out of the 4 possible Chaos God armies, I also think that Slaanesh might be the hardest one to grasp, especially as there's nothing too big in that list. There are no big monsters or just big things in general in regards to doom stacking, as the only big monstrous creature of sorts is that of the Keeper of Secrets, and it's very likely that that is going to be a Lord option, as it does make a lot of sense. For those interested in possible Doomstack options, as I know those are quite popular, I imagine that it's going to be centered around chariots. Spellcasters on chariots being supported by even more chariots. Yes, the chariots themselves are quite powerful, so they should have a decent damage output. As I said, for Slaanesh it was more centered around synergy. The other Chaos Gods themselves had a tad more when it came to possible unit compositions and how their playstyles would work. And we will cover them soon enough. But what do you think about Slaanesh's possible playstyle? Bear in mind once again that I tried to go through the lore on the tabletop, as those are the best references when it comes to these types of demons. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and let's start a bit of a discussion. I'm rather curious as to what you think, as in all honesty I don't imagine Slaanesh being that popular. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel has been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.